It started with Google Calendar. Literally, she sent me an invite titled Together Time Purple Heart for a Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. sharp. I was at work, scrolling through my notifications between emails, and saw the pop-up like any other meeting request. Except, more intimate. At first, I smiled. I even laughed. It felt quirky, efficient in the most strangely romantic way. I accepted, added a little purple heart emoji, and thought, hey, this is what adult relationships look like: organized, intentional, emotionally mature. But then it happened again the following month. Same title, same tone, same 8:30 p.m., 30 days later. That's when I realized it wasn't a cute one-off. It was a system. A scheduled routine for something I'd always thought was supposed to be spontaneous, not random, not chaotic, but felt, not forecasted. So I asked her. We were sitting in the living room, halfway through a show neither of us were actually watching. I leaned over and said, trying to sound neutral, hey, about the calendar thing. Are we, doing that now? The scheduling? She didn't even flinch. Yeah, she said, eyes still on the screen. It's something I've been reading about. Helps with consistency and managing expectations. Oh, I said, like that made sense. And maybe it did. In theory. But inside, something pulled taut. Managing expectations, I repeated. So, like a workflow? She turned to me, finally, and smiled, that soft, measured smile she uses when she knows she's about to explain something that could sound weird but isn't to her. Not a workflow. Just structure. So it doesn't become another thing we forget about or let drift. It's not about pressure, it's about respect. I nodded. And nodded again. But a part of me was already folding into itself. Let me be clear, this isn't about sex. Not really. We weren't wildly mismatched in that department. We weren't swinging from chandeliers or anything, but it wasn't broken. It wasn't even that infrequent. Just, lived in. Comfortable. Or at least, I thought it was. This was something different. It was about the way she said respect. Spontaneity was somehow irresponsible. My version of closeness was immature. And yeah, maybe it is. But I miss it. The next invite came with a note. Hey love, putting this here early so we have time to prep mentally and emotionally. No pressure, okay? Just an anchor. An anchor. I didn't know if that made me feel safe or stuck. I tried bringing it up again over brunch with a friend, Jack, who's known me since college, back when my greatest relationship concern was whether someone liked the same obscure alt bands I did. He stirred his coffee and said, honestly, it sounds responsible? Like she cares enough to prioritize it. Sure, I said. But would you want to have to RSVP to be close with your partner? Jack shrugged. My last girlfriend forgot my birthday, so... Point taken. Bad sample. But still, it wasn't about having intimacy. It was about what it meant to her, and what it was starting to feel like to me. The following month, I tried to cancel. Not because I didn't want her. But because I did. Because that week had been rough and I wanted closeness real, unguarded, now, not 3 Thursdays from now. I suggested we curl up on the couch that night. No invite. No reminder. Just, us. She kissed my cheek and said gently, I wasn't emotionally prepared today. But I'm really looking forward to the 16th. The 16th. That's when it hit me. There were versions of me she wasn't ready for. Even when I was right there, asking. I know how that sounds. Like I'm a walking, talking fragile ego. But here's the thing. I wasn't trying to demand anything. I just wanted to feel welcomed, not penciled in. I wanted to matter even when I wasn't scheduled to. That night, I lay awake, scrolling through old texts from our early days, the ones full of impulsive voice notes and blurry selfies at 1 a.m., her breathy laughter through the speaker, the feeling that we were discovering each other in real time, not preloading connection like a software update. I'm not saying people don't change. I'm just wondering when we did. And whether I'm the only one who noticed. A week later, I got a new invite. Same title. But now there was a Google Doc attached. For reflection, how have we been feeling lately about physical connection? Any emotional needs we haven't voiced yet? Seedling. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I clicked maybe. And closed my laptop. The first time we followed through with the scheduled night, I told myself it was no big deal. We were both adults. We had jobs, calendars, responsibilities. Maybe this was just what grown-up love looked like, intentional, respectful, measured. Maybe all that spontaneous, throw everything on the floor intimacy was something you outgrew, like late-night pizza or sleeping until noon. So I played along. I even lit candles. We ordered Thai food, sat cross-legged on the carpet, laughed about how we'd both worn our nicer socks. She was softer that night, like she'd finally stepped out from behind some kind of invisible curtain. Her hands lingered longer on my shoulder. Her eyes didn't dart away when I said something slightly too earnest. It felt nice. But also like I was auditioning for a part one hadn't rehearsed enough. At 8:32 p.m., right as I leaned in to kiss her neck, ping, her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Together time Purple Heart starts now. We both froze. She gave an awkward laugh, silenced it, and said, "Oops, forgot to turn that off." I tried to shrug it off too. But something in me folded, quiet, sharp, and paper thin. Not because of the alert itself, but because it wasn't ironic. It wasn't accidental. It was planned. The reminder had been real. Later, when we were lying in bed, his skin still warm, her hand resting on my chest, I asked, "Do you actually need the reminder?" She hesitated, then said, "Not always. But sometimes it helps me shift gears mentally. Tell my body and brain it's safe." I nodded. I understood, sort of. It made sense in theory. She'd mentioned before that she came from a family that didn't touch much, didn't talk about emotions. Her first boyfriend had pressured her. Her second ghosted her after she opened up. Her need for control wasn't random. It was earned. But understanding her didn't stop me from slowly losing sight of myself. A few days later, I found myself looking at the shared Google Calendar again. My events were in blue, hers in green. The purple events hours stood out like post-its on a fridge door. Some had notes, emotional check-in before, soft close, no dinner too late, journal afterward, optional. It was a blueprint, a manual, a system for something I didn't want to optimize. I wanted to feel her hand on my back just because I looked tired. I wanted to kiss her and not have it feel like opening an app. But I didn't know how to say that without sounding needy, or dismissive, or like some kind of intimacy caveman who thought foreplay was a footnote. So I said nothing. Instead, I texted my sister, Jen. She's 5 years older, in her second marriage, mother of 2, and the most emotionally literate person I know. She responded instantly. It sounds like she's protecting herself with structure, which makes sense. But, do you feel protected too? That part got to me. Because no, I didn't. I felt tolerated, included, yes. Considered, but not wanted, and I didn't know if that was something I was allowed to grieve out loud. A week later, we had dinner at her friend Mia's house, one of those vaguely bohemian affairs with wildflowers in mason jars and 3 kinds of hummus. At one point, Mia asked, laughing, "So, how do you two keep the spark alive?" Before I could answer, she said brightly, "We schedule it," like she was announcing a life hack. There was a pause. Then the group laughed. Not mockingly. Just with that, "Oh wow, good for you" energy. I smiled too. But inside, I wanted to vanish. Because that moment felt like the difference between us and me. Back home, I didn't bring it up. We brushed teeth. Folded laundry. She showed me a funny TikTok. We kissed goodnight. But as I lay awake, I stared at the ceiling and realized I couldn't remember the last time I touched her without wondering if I had permission. Not because she'd said no, but because the script had become so clear and I didn't want to be the guy who went off script. I was starting to feel like a character in her schedule, not a partner in her life. And that scared me. More than I could admit. 2 days later, I tried something small. I came home early, brought her favorite pastries, lit a candle, put on the playlist we made the first month we were dating, back when we still sent each other songs instead of shared spreadsheets. When she walked in, she smiled, surprised, touched. We ate on the floor again. We laughed. It was good. Warm. But then she stood up and said, gently, "I just want to be clear. I'm not emotionally available for more tonight. I love this. I love you. But I didn't prep for that." Prep. That word. I was a midterm. I nodded. And said, "Of course. No worries." And I meant it. But that night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was upset with her, but because I wasn't sure if I was still in a relationship or just visiting hers. I didn't set out to talk to Laura. It just kind of happened. She was my ex, technically, but it had been years. We dated briefly in our early 20s, a relationship that flared up fast and burnt out just as quickly. No drama. No betrayal. Just a slow realization that we were better as people who once knew each other. We'd kept in loose touch over the years. Social media comments. Birthday texts. A coffee here and there when paths crossed. She had moved back to town recently for work, and when I ran into her at the bookstore, she said, "You look like someone who could use caffeine or a therapist." I chose caffeine. We sat at a small cafe tucked behind a flower shop, the kind of place that always smelled like cinnamon and damp soil. She asked how I was. I said, "Fine." She raised an eyebrow. So I tried again. "I'm in a good relationship," I said. "Objectively healthy. Kind. Thoughtful. But also, I don't know. I feel like I'm disappearing a little." She stirred her tea. Waited. "She schedules our intimacy," I added. "Like literally sends me calendar invites. 30 days in advance." Laura blinked. Then, carefully, "And how does that feel for you?" I laughed a little too quickly. "I'm a dentist appointment?" She didn't smile. "You know what I mean," I said, softer. "I do," she said. "But I don't think you do. Because you sound like you're apologizing for existing." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "You keep talking like your needs are this massive inconvenience. Wanting closeness without a pre-booked time slot makes you needy or broken." I looked down. "It's not just about me," I said. "She's got a history. Boundaries. This helps her feel safe." "And you respect that," Laura said. "I do. But do you feel safe?" I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure. That night, back home, I didn't say much. Clara noticed. She always notices. "Everything okay?" she asked as we were brushing our teeth. I said. "Just tired." It wasn't a lie. Not completely. But it also wasn't true. We went to bed with our backs to each other. Not in anger. Just the default position lately. We were each conserving our emotional energy for the days we'd circled on the calendar. And I kept thinking about what Laura had said. That maybe I was shrinking myself for someone else's comfort. Maybe that's what I thought love required. The next morning, I opened the shared calendar. There was a new event. Physical connection, June 27th, 8:30 p.m. Purple Heart. "Let me know if this works. Can adjust if needed," smiley face. It was polite. Warm. Considerate. And it made my chest ache. Because it reminded me of an old roommate I once had who would leave post-it notes to tell me when it was okay to use the shower. Not out of control, just out of conflict avoidance. And suddenly, this felt the same. I closed the laptop. Went for a walk. Ended up at the bookstore again. I wandered the aisles, not looking for anything, just needing a space that didn't know me. I passed by a table with a book about attachment styles. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. I already knew the story. That night, Clara came home later than usual. She looked tired, like the world had worn down her edges. I wanted to hold her. To just sit on the couch and pull her into my chest. But I didn't. I waited. For a signal. For a green light. And that was the worst part, realizing I had stopped reaching out unless invited. After dinner, she reached for my hand. "I'd been meaning to ask," she said. "Would you feel better if we added more check-ins? Not just physical stuff, but like emotional inventory moments?" I paused. "Maybe," I said. "But can I ask something?" "Of course. Do you ever miss when we didn't need all this structure?" She looked away. Then nodded. "I do. But I also remember how messy that felt. How unsafe." "So now we're safe," I said. She smiled, a little sad. "Mostly." "And are we close?" She didn't answer right away. Then. "I think we're trying." Later, in the shower, I stood under the water for a long time, letting the steam blur the mirror, the windows, everything. I thought about that word, trying. It was true. We were trying. But maybe we weren't trying at the same thing. Before bed, I opened a new doc in our shared folder. She had called it Relationship Workspace. There were tabs for finances, vacation ideas, upcoming grocery runs. I clicked on a blank page and titled it Unscheduled. Then I wrote, "I miss you. Not because you're not here, but because I've learned to wait for your permission to feel you. I don't want to make you smaller, but I also don't want to disappear so you can breathe easier. Is there a version of us where we both get to be whole?" I didn't share the doc yet. I just left it open, stared at it for a while, then closed the laptop. She read it. I could tell the moment she did. It was a Tuesday. She'd come home later than usual, not alarmingly late, just enough that she looked a bit frayed at the edges. She kissed me hello in that absent-minded way that people kiss pets when they're halfway out the door again. We made dinner mostly in silence. She told me about a client who was trying to sue their own nephew. I told her my boss had rescheduled our one-on-one for the third time. We smiled in the right places, laughed, even. But something hung between us. And when she went into the bedroom to change, I heard the click of the laptop lid. A long pause. Then nothing. Just the rest of the night happening around a silence that was now just slightly heavier. I didn't bring it up. She didn't mention it either. But we both moved through the evening like people rearranging furniture in a room that's already too full. When we got into bed, she lay on her side, her back to me. I hesitated, hand hovering midair, not sure if touching her now would feel comforting or confrontational. So I let it drop. The next morning, she was up early. She made coffee but didn't wait for me to drink it with her. I found the mug cooling next to the sink, half full. Her planner was open, a pen lying diagonally across the page like it had rolled out of her hand and been abandoned. That's when I knew she didn't know how to answer. She'd read my message. And it had touched something. But not in the way I hoped. That night, she finally said something. We were folding laundry, the TV muttering in the background. I held one of her sweaters, trying to remember if it went on a hanger or in a drawer. "You want spontaneity," she said. No context. Just the statement. I looked up. "Not only that," I replied. "I just miss feeling like we were making this up as we went. Not following a syllabus." She nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. "And I miss not having to overthink every time I let someone near me." I sat down on the bed. "That's fair," I said. She folded a sock. Paused. "Then what do we do?" she asked. "Because I feel like I'm trying so hard to make this feel safe. And you're trying to make it feel natural. And those things don't seem to want to overlap." I didn't have an answer. Later, we sat on the couch in silence. The kind of silence that isn't passive, but active. Like we were both thinking so loudly that the air between us couldn't hold any more noise. Eventually, she said, very quietly, "I don't know what you want from me." It wasn't defensive. It was small. Almost childlike. And for a moment, I hated myself not because I'd done something wrong, but because I didn't know how to reassure her without disappearing more. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I want something with you." She closed her eyes. "That sounds nice," she whispered. "But it also feels impossible." That night, I opened the unscheduled doc again. I didn't change anything. I just read it, slowly. And realized I hadn't written it for her to fix anything. I'd written it so I wouldn't explode from the effort of pretending everything felt okay. Which, maybe, was its own kind of pressure. 2 days passed without any calendar invites. It was the first time in months that a new Together Time Purple Heart hadn't appeared like clockwork. It made me anxious. And also, relieved? Maybe something was shifting. Or maybe we were quietly drifting, like two ships waiting for the other to blink. Friday night, she came into the living room holding 2 mugs of tea. She handed me one, sat down next to me, and said, "I saw what you wrote. I've been thinking about it." I waited. She wrapped both hands around her mug. "Scheduling things was my way of showing up," she said. "I thought, if I could make it predictable, I'd feel safer. And if you knew what to expect, maybe you'd feel chosen." I swallowed. "That makes sense," I said. She nodded. "But then I read what you wrote. And it made me realize something I didn't want to admit." "What?" "That sometimes I use structure not just to feel safe, but to avoid. To not be fully in it." She looked at me then, and I saw it. The fear. The truth. The exhaustion. I've never felt comfortable with closeness that's messy. That comes out of nowhere. That isn't on my terms. But I think I confused that with it being bad. And now? I don't know, she said. I want to try. But I need you to know it's not easy. I put my hand over hers. I don't need it to be easy, I said. I just want it to be us. We didn't make love that night. We didn't even kiss. But she fell asleep with her head on my chest for the first time in weeks. And I didn't feel like I had to earn it. Or ask for it. Or RSVP. The next morning, she deleted the calendar invite. But left the purple heart emoji in our shared thread. Just by itself. No message. No plan. Just a gesture. And that was enough. For now. For a few days, we felt like we were back at the beginning. The good kind. Not the fireworks and butterflies kind, we were past that. But something quieter, more tentative. Like two people testing a bridge they've rebuilt plank by plank. The calendar was gone. The purple event dots disappeared. No more reminders. No more notes. No more doc attachments titled emotional prep. And at first, it felt like relief. Like I could breathe in the space between us again. There was room for surprise. For reaching over and touching her hand without scanning for context. But almost immediately, I noticed something else, too. A new kind of silence. Not the simmering kind we'd had before. This one felt afraid. It started small. We'd sit next to each other on the couch, watching something dumb and sweet. My hand would find hers, but she'd shift, not away, exactly. Just enough to register. When we kissed, it felt soft. Nice. But I could sense the tension just beneath her skin, like her body was listening for an alarm she hadn't yet set. The first time I leaned in spontaneously, just a moment, no pressure, she smiled, but said, maybe not tonight, okay? And I said, of course. Because it was okay. But also, it wasn't. Because we'd removed the scaffolding, but hadn't built anything new. That Sunday, I made pancakes. We played music, she danced a little in the kitchen. I kissed her shoulder. It felt playful again, almost natural. And then, right before we sat down, she said, do you think we should? I don't know, pencil things back in? Not like before. But just something lighter? I froze, spatula midair. I didn't say anything. She backtracked immediately. Forget it, she said, laughing too quickly. Bad idea. And I wanted to say, no, it's not a bad idea. It's just scary that we're afraid to want different things. But instead, I just nodded. And we ate pancakes in a quiet too soft to name. That afternoon, I visited my mom. She asked about Clara. I said, we're figuring it out. She raised an eyebrow, that mombrow that sees through any fog. You love her, she asked. Yeah, I said. Very much. And does she love you? Yeah. She sipped her tea. Then what's the tension in your voice? I looked at the floor. It's like, we keep renegotiating how to be close. And I don't know if that's healthy or just exhausting. She nodded, slowly. You know, she said, your dad and I used to fight all the time about when to eat dinner. Not because of food. Because he saw dinner as a ritual. A signal that the day was done, and we were together. And I saw it as another chore. What changed? We got separate kitchens. I blinked. Seriously? She smiled. Seriously. The problem wasn't dinner. It was feeling forced into each other's rhythms. I laughed. So what? I need my own intimacy calendar. She shrugged. Maybe. Maybe you just need to know your rhythm matters too. I went home thinking about that. Not the kitchen part. But the part where love doesn't have to mean synchronization. It just has to mean willingness. And maybe we'd lost that somewhere between the doc folders and the missed cues. That night, Clara was curled up on the couch, legs tucked under her, reading. I sat next to her, quiet. She glanced at me. You okay? I've been thinking, I said. What if we made space for both? She closed her book. What do you mean? Not full structure. Not total spontaneity. Just a system where we can reach for each other and also retreat, and know that both are okay. She considered that. And then, like a shared calendar with soft events? I laughed. Maybe, I said. But no notifications, she smiled. And then her face softened. I'd been scared, she admitted. That if I let go of the schedule, I'll disappoint you. Or freeze. Or go into my head again. And you'll think I don't want you. I know you want me, I said. She shook her head. Sometimes I don't even know that myself. That gutted me more than I expected, because I'd been so focused on feeling unwanted. I hadn't noticed she was still learning how to want it all. We sat in that truth for a while. And then I asked, "Do you ever feel like we're speaking different emotional languages?" She nodded. All the time. Then why do we keep trying? She smiled, small and tired. Because some words only exist between us. Later that night, I lay awake thinking about something she once said long ago when we first started dating. "I need time to feel before I can act," she told me. "Otherwise, I just go through the motions." At the time, I'd taken it as vulnerability. Now I realized it was also a warning. And I hadn't really heard it. The next morning, she sent me a text from the other room. "New system, spontaneity bucket. You can drop in notes, invites, weird ideas, anything. I'll check it when I feel ready." Not a yes. Not a no. Just a door that's always open. Purple heart. I stared at it for a long time. Then typed back. Deal. And I'm building a folder called Moments I Didn't Ask For But Loved Anyway. Starting with this one. We're not fixed. We're not aligned. But we're paying attention again. And sometimes, that's enough. The first time it worked, really worked, was on a Wednesday. Midweek. No plans, no invites, no preemptive conversations about emotional readiness or calendars or consent documents hidden under emojis. Just a quiet evening, both of us in old t-shirts, eating leftovers in bed with Netflix droning in the background. She had her feet tangled in the blanket and I had a spoonful of reheated pasta halfway to my mouth when she turned, looked at me, and said, "Come here." Just like that. No explanation. No warning. Her voice was soft. Not performative. Not calculated. Not afraid. Just her. Present. Clear. So I went. And it was slow, not hesitant. Curious. Familiar. Her hand on my neck, my fingers brushing her cheek. We kissed like people who just remembered they'd forgotten how good it felt to kiss. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a compromise. It felt like a homecoming. Afterward, we lay tangled together, legs in all the wrong places, my hand resting on her stomach, rising and falling with her breath. She looked at me with this half-laugh, half-wonder expression and said, "That was kind of amazing." "Yeah," I said. "Was it weird not to plan it?" "No," I replied. "Was it for you?" She hesitated. Then said, "A little. But in a good way. Like jumping into a lake. Cold, but you're glad you did it." I kissed her shoulder. We didn't say much after that. Just stayed close, breathing. The next morning, everything felt lighter. She danced while making coffee again. She sang off-key to a song she didn't know the words to. I watched her move around the kitchen and felt this strange ache, not of longing, but of relief. Like my body was trying to remember that it could exhale again. And I think, for a moment, we both believed something had shifted. That maybe we were finding a rhythm after all. But the thing about rhythm is that it doesn't always return when you call it. Sometimes, it just evaporates. And the next time I reached for her, she flinched. It was 2 nights later. We were watching a documentary about whales, one of those slow, poetic ones with sweeping music and long silences. She was curled into my side, and I kissed her forehead. She smiled. Then I kissed her neck. Her breath caught, but not in the way I hoped. I felt her body go still. Not in invitation. In retreat. She didn't say stop. But everything in her said it. So I did. Immediately, she pulled away gently. "I'm sorry," she said, eyes wide and already searching for an exit. "You don't need to apologize," I said, sitting back, giving her space. She hugged her knees to her chest, staring at the paused screen. "I didn't see it coming," she said. "I wasn't prepared." "I thought we were okay," I said, and instantly regretted the way it sounded. "We are," she said quickly. My body got scared. That word scared rang in my chest like a dropped key in a cathedral. We sat in silence for a long time. Not angry. Not broken. Just paused. Eventually, she said, I know it's not fair. I said I wanted more spontaneity. But sometimes it catches me off guard in the worst way. It's okay, I said. I don't need anything right now. I just want to understand. She looked at me. Eyes soft. I want to trust myself again, she whispered. That I can say yes without my nervous system treating it like a threat. I nodded. Because what else do you say to that? Later, lying in bed, I wanted to touch her. Not for anything more. Just to anchor her. To anchor us. But I didn't. Because I wasn't sure if my hand would feel like comfort or pressure. And that's when I realized something. I wasn't afraid of rejection. I was afraid of making her feel unsafe in a place that should feel like refuge. The next day, I added a new note to the spontaneity bucket. It just said, would love to read in bed with you tonight. Just reading. No expectations, just warmth. She didn't respond right away. But that evening, when I came home, there was a blanket folded on the bed, 2 books beside it, and her softest hoodie laying over the pillow like an invitation. We didn't talk about the night before. We didn't need to. We just opened our books and leaned into each other, and it felt like we were learning a new kind of closeness. One where stillness was the point, not the prelude. That weekend, we saw her friend Mia again, brunch, this time. Mia asked how we were doing, with that playful eyebrow raise that said she remembered the calendar thing. Before I could speak, Clara said, we're experimenting with being messier. Mia blinked. Messy, like? Like not knowing how things will go. Like trusting each other to figure it out in real time. Mia nodded slowly, then grinned. That's kind of sexy, honestly. Clara smiled. And I realized she meant it. That night, I told her. I think the hardest part is not knowing when to reach. She nodded. Same. I spend so much energy wondering if it's the right moment, that I miss the moment entirely. We were quiet for a while. Then I said, maybe we just reach anyway. And risk it? Yeah. Carefully. Gently. But yes. She didn't answer. But she leaned in. And rested her forehead on mine. We didn't talk about families much. Not intentionally, it just hadn't come up in depth. Little mentions here and there. A story about a brother. A comment about a mother who meant well but said too much. I think part of it was politeness, part of it survival. But when my dad invited us for dinner, nothing fancy, just lasagna and opinions, he texted, I asked Clara if she wanted to come. She hesitated. Just long enough, then said, sure. It's time, right? I smiled. But part of me also tensed. Because families, even the gentle ones, bring mirrors. And sometimes the reflection cracks. We arrived early. My dad was in the backyard, grilling something he insisted was better than lasagna anyway. Clara followed me through the house like someone stepping into a museum of someone else's childhood, polite, curious, a little too careful. My mother hugged her warmly. Asked her what she did again. Asked if she liked basil. Asked if we were getting enough sleep. Clara smiled. Said all the right things. But I could feel it. The performance behind the posture. Dinner was fine. Not bad. Just long. My dad told stories that no one needed to hear again. My mom talked about a neighbor's baby. At one point, she asked, so, have you two talked about next steps? Clara's fork paused midair. I cleared my throat and said, we're good where we are. My mother's smile froze just enough to register. Of course, she said. Just wondering. Clara didn't say anything, just went back to her lasagna. But her eyes didn't come back up for the rest of the meal. Afterward, I found her in the hallway, staring at an old family photo, me at age 10, arms stiff at my sides, a forced smile like someone had yelled say cheese and I obeyed. She didn't say anything, just pointed. That's the same face you make now, when you're trying not to say the wrong thing. I laughed softly. Guess it's a learned skill. She nodded. I used to make that face around my mom, she said. Every time she stood in a doorway. That seemed oddly specific. So I asked, what do you mean? Clara leaned against the wall. She never just walked in. She stood there, watching, waiting, like she was giving you a chance to invite her in, even though she already had all the power. Like emotional hovercrafting, I said. Clara smirked. Exactly. And your dad? She shrugged. Gone before it mattered. Or maybe it only started mattering when he left. I waited. She took a breath. You know what's weird? I still can't close doors all the way. I always leave them slightly open. Like if I shut them, someone will accuse me of hiding. There was a silence. Then she added, almost too quietly. It wasn't about the door. That night, we didn't talk much on the drive home. But when we got into bed, I pulled her a little closer. She didn't resist. I asked, did tonight make things feel heavier? She shook her head. Not heavier. Just clearer. About what? She thought for a moment. That we both come from places where privacy meant distance, not protection. And now we're trying to learn the difference. The next morning, I woke up before her. I lay there, watching her breathe, hair tangled, face softened by sleep. And I realized something. All the times she hesitated, all the times she needed to plan, all the times she pulled away, maybe they weren't rejections, maybe they were echoes. Of doorways, of watchful mothers, of absences she learned to call normal. And me? I had my own echoes, the ones that taught me not to ask twice. The ones that said, if she flinches, don't push. If she pauses, disappear. Not because I didn't care, but because I thought that was respect. Later that day, I told her. Not everything, just a piece. I used to think closeness meant guessing. Like, if I had to ask, I'd already lost. She looked up from her coffee. That sounds exhausting. It was. She reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. I don't want you to guess, she said. I want you to ask. Even if I don't always have the right words yet. That cracked something in me. In a good way. We decided to take a walk. The air was cool. We ended up on a bench near the dog park, watching other people be chaotic and happy and unscheduled. Clara laughed at a golden retriever who kept dropping his ball in front of a couple who clearly didn't want to play. You think that's us? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. You being the retriever? No, I said. Me being the couple. Pretending not to want what I obviously do. She smiled. Then maybe I'm the ball. Always getting dropped in the middle of something. We both laughed. But it lingered. Because it was true. That night, I reached for her. Not with an agenda. Just a hand on her back. A gentle check-in. She didn't flinch. She turned toward me. And whispered, I'm scared of unplanned things. But I'm more scared of never feeling like I get to choose. I said, I'm scared of pushing. But I'm more scared of always waiting. We stared at each other. Then she said, so maybe we just stay scared, together? I nodded. Yeah, I said. That sounds like us. It started with a toothbrush. Or, more precisely, a missing one. It was mine. The electric kind with the faded blue bristles and that annoying low battery beep I kept meaning to fix. It wasn't in its usual place in the bathroom cup. I looked around. Not in the drawer. Not on the sink. Not even plugged in. I called out, casual, hey, have you seen my toothbrush? Silence. Then Clara's voice, distant, oh. Yeah. I knocked it into the trash last night by accident. I meant to tell you. I blinked. It's in the trash? I threw it out, she called back. It landed in the part with the banana peel. I figured you wouldn't want it back. I stood there, toothbrushless, trying to decide why I suddenly felt a little hollow. It wasn't about the toothbrush. It never is. I went out later and bought a new one. Didn't say anything else about it. But the silence stuck to us all day. It wasn't a fight. Wasn't even tension. Just the absence of familiarity. Like someone had put a wall up while you were blinking, and you walked right into it. That night, we didn't talk much. We made dinner, side by side. Listened to a podcast while we chopped vegetables. But there was no laughter, no teasing, no taste this moment. Just tasks. At some point, she reached for my hand while we were waiting for the pasta to boil. I let her. but I didn't squeeze back. And I don't know if she noticed or just didn't want to notice. After dinner, we both retreated into different corners of the apartment. I sat on the couch, scrolling, pretending to be interested in the news. She went into the bedroom with her laptop. I could hear typing, but not the rhythm of focus, more like distraction. Avoidance. Around 10, she came out with a cup of tea. She offered me one wordlessly. I shook my head. She didn't push. Just curled up in her chair, sipping slowly, eyes on her phone but unfocused. It was one of those moments where you feel the things not being said stacking up around you. Not resentments, exactly, just missed check-ins. And missed check-ins become assumptions. And assumptions become distance. At 10:47 p.m., she sent me a message from across the room. Literally. A text. Are we okay? I looked up. She didn't. So I typed back. Yeah. Just a weird day. Then, because that felt cold, I added. I love you. She read it. Then nodded, just once. And we went to bed without another word. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Left a sticky note on the fridge. Early meeting. Back by lunch. Red heart. I stared at it for a long time. The heart looked like it was drawn hesitantly. Like she wasn't sure if it still landed the same way. By noon, she still wasn't back. I checked the spontaneity bucket we'd been using. No new messages. No new invites. No responses. And I realized that even our unstructured system had quietly become another structure. Another place where silence meant more than it used to. Around 3 p.m., I opened the old unscheduled doc. Typed a line. Then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that, too. Eventually, I just wrote. I know it wasn't about the toothbrush. I think we both know that. But I'm scared we're learning to skip each other again. Like we're in the same room, but not tuned in. And I don't know if I should say something or wait. I just miss you. Even though you haven't left. I didn't send it. Just saved it. Closed the laptop. And sat with the ache. She came home around 5. Dropped her bag quietly. Didn't say much. She looked, not upset. Just muted. Like someone moving through fog. I stood in the kitchen, not sure what to do. She reached past me for a glass. Our hands brushed. She said, "Hey." Said, "Hey." That was it. The smallest exchange. But it felt like an entire conversation spoken behind glass. Later that evening, we both sat on the couch, side by side, watching a movie neither of us chose. Halfway through, she paused it. Turned to me. And said, "I feel like I disappointed you." I blinked. "What?" "Yesterday," she said. "With the toothbrush. And everything after. You went quiet." I exhaled. I didn't mean to. I just didn't know how to ask for what I needed without sounding petty. Her eyes softened. "What did you need?" I thought about it. Then said, "Just to feel like the moment mattered. That it wasn't just an object. That I wasn't replaceable." She didn't flinch. Didn't push back. She just whispered, "You're not." Then paused. "But I know it sometimes feels like you are. And I hate that I do that." We didn't solve anything that night. But she reached for my hand and held it like she meant it. And that was enough. At least for now. Because sometimes, love is a conversation you keep having. Even when you're tired. Even when it feels awkward. Even when it starts with a toothbrush in the trash. I had this idea. It wasn't huge or flashy. Not romantic in the movie soundtrack sense. But it felt right. I remembered Clara once telling me that as a kid, she'd always wanted a canopy bed. The kind with sheer curtains and a string of fairy lights and a feeling of being cocooned, safe, far from the noise. She'd said it in passing, months ago, while walking past a vintage furniture shop. We hadn't even gone inside. Just stood at the window while she said, that always looked like a place where nothing bad could reach you. And then she laughed, shrugged it off, and changed the subject. But I didn't forget. So I bought the lights. Found curtain rods and fabric online. measured the ceiling while she was out for errands, spent a quiet Saturday morning assembling the softest kind of surprise I could think of. When she walked in and saw it, the canopy above the bed, the glow of tiny lights, the fabric swaying ever so slightly, her face did that thing where emotion tries to arrive and back out at the same time. She froze in the doorway. I smiled. Told you I remembered. She stepped forward, touched the fabric, didn't speak. I thought I'd nailed it. I thought this was one of those moments, a breakthrough, a turning point, a bridge. But then she sat on the edge of the bed, facing away from me, and said nothing. I walked over, gentle. Is it okay? I asked. She nodded. Too fast. It's beautiful, she said. Really? But her voice had gone flat, quiet, measured. I sat beside her and waited. Eventually, she said, "It's so kind." I exhaled, a little relieved. I just wanted to make something that felt safe. She nodded again. But this time, slower. And then she whispered, "But it doesn't." I felt it in my chest, like a breath I hadn't prepared for. "Oh," I said. And for a while, neither of us spoke, just sat there. "It's not you," she said eventually. "It's not the lights. Or the idea. Or the effort. It's..." She trailed off. So I waited. And she tried again. "It's like, you built something around me. But I still feel exposed inside me. And I didn't know how to tell you that without sounding ungrateful." I looked at her. "I don't think you're ungrateful." She turned to face me. Eyes glassy. "I think I'm broken," she said. And that word, broken, split something between us. Not in a violent way. In a heartbreakingly gentle one. "You're not," I said quietly. "You're just, still carrying things no one helped you unpack." She let out a sound, not a sob, but the prelude to one. Then she said, "I wanted to love this. I really did. But all I felt when I saw it was, I hope I'm worthy of it." And then I felt ashamed that I didn't already feel worthy. I nodded. Because there was nothing to argue with. Because she was telling the truth. And because maybe, deep down, I had made the canopy not just for her, but for me. For the version of her I wanted to protect. For the version of me who believed that creating comfort could solve discomfort. "I was trying to love you the way I'd want to be loved," I said. She turned to me again. Softly. "I know." And it hurt how much she knew. Because love wasn't failing. But it wasn't sinking, either. That night, we lay under the canopy, lights off, everything quiet. She rested her head on my chest, said, "I feel like you're trying so hard not to make a wrong move that you've stopped making any." I let that sink in. "I think I'm afraid that one wrong move will undo everything." "It won't," she said. "But I need you to stop tiptoeing." I swallowed. "Even if it means I misstep?" She nodded into my shirt. "Especially then. Because at least then I'll know you're still with me. Not just orbiting around me." We fell asleep like that. Not fixed. But facing each other, finally. The next morning, the canopy fabric had slipped slightly on one side. It dangled crookedly, soft and silly. Clara laughed when she saw it. "Okay," she said. "Maybe I do like it." I grinned. "It's won you over, huh?" "Maybe not the decor," she said. "But the attempt." And then she added, after a beat, "I want to try again. With all of it. But not by myself." "You're not," I said. She reached for my hand. And for the first time in a while, it didn't feel like a peace treaty. It felt like an invitation. The canopy stayed up. She never asked me to take it down. And I never tried to fix the side that had sagged a little. It dangled there, lopsided and soft, like a flag from a shared country we hadn't fully mapped out yet. Some days it made us laugh. Some days we didn't mention it at all. And somehow, that felt right. We didn't go back to the calendar. The spontaneity bucket slowly stopped updating, too. Not by agreement. Just inertia. Instead, we started talking more. Not long, deep, soul-bearing conversations every night, but small ones. "Hey, I missed you today. Can I hold you without needing a reason?" Would this be a good moment to kiss you? Not constant, not forced, just moments, little questions, little permissions, and over time, the air got easier to breathe. It didn't mean we stopped misunderstanding each other. We still did. Just last week, I tried to surprise her with a night away. Thought I was being romantic, spontaneous, finally unstructured. She looked panicked. 2 nights away? With no prep? I immediately apologized. But she shook her head. No, I want that. I just need more time. And then she smiled, kissed me, and said, "But thank you for trying. Don't stop." So I didn't. There was a moment a few weeks later that I think about a lot. It was small, forgettable, probably, to anyone else. But for me, it was everything. We were folding laundry. Sunday morning light leaking through the blinds. She picked up one of my old t-shirts and held it to her chest. "This one still smells like you," she said. I laughed. Probably because I wear it every time I'm anxious. She didn't laugh. She just looked at me. And said, "That's when I like you most." What? When I'm anxious? No. When you're real. When you stop curating. That landed in my stomach like a soft stone. Later that night, I kissed her out of nowhere. Just walked past her in the hallway and stopped. She looked startled, not scared, just surprised. And then she smiled. "That was unapproved," she said teasingly. I grinned. "Sorry, I'll file a retroactive request." She rolled her eyes. But then pulled me close. And said, softly, "Please keep doing that." That became our rhythm. Not a plan. Not a rule. But an agreement, unspoken. That love is a thing we would keep reaching for. Even if our arms sometimes shook. Even if we sometimes missed. One night, I asked her, "Do you ever wonder what we would have been like without all the prep?" She didn't answer right away. Then said, "No. Because I think this is us. Prep and mess, structure and collapse, the trying." I nodded. And said, "I think I love the trying more than I thought I would." She smiled. "I think I love that you keep trying even when it's uncomfortable." We didn't end up with a perfect system. Some nights, we still missed each other. Some nights, I still hesitated. Some nights, she still pulled away before she even knew why. But we were gentler now. And that made all the difference. The last entry in the unscheduled doc wasn't planned. I wrote it on a rainy Tuesday while she napped on the couch beside me. You don't always say yes. And I don't always ask right. But I love that we keep learning how to speak each other's language. Even with the wrong words. Especially with the wrong words. I don't know where this leads. But if you're walking, I'm walking. I didn't tell her I'd written it. But a week later, I found a note slipped into my book. It said, "Let's keep walking, even when the path feels made up. Even when we trip. I don't want certainty. I want you." So that's where we are. Not fixed, not finished, but facing each other, day after day, learning to reach. And maybe that's the point. Not to arrive. But to stay in motion. Together. Even if some nights still land sideways. Even if the canopy fabric never quite gets straight. Even if the lights flicker. Some things aren't meant to be scheduled. Some things are just meant to be felt. And refelt. Over and over. Till the feeling becomes familiar. And the familiar becomes enough.